We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
With global pals, it's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about
everything theater. Great to see everybody. Yeah, you think we can't see you. I'm Benita Zahn.
And I'm Ellen Cribbs. And to get things started off today, I want to let everyone know that this episode is double sponsored. We have two green rooms today. First up, we are sponsored by Masterclass Performing Arts. If you didn't hear our episode last week, tune in. They do some great stuff. They are doing Disney's Descendants at Rensselaer Central School District Auditorium from October 21st to the 23rd, featuring over 40 students from across the Capital Region. It's a fun play that features the teenage children of famous Disney villains. And for more information on that, you can go to their website, masterclassperformingarts.com. And we are also sponsored this week by Playhouse Stage Company. They kick off their 35th anniversary season in October with Stephen Sondheim and John Weidman's fascinating, controversial, and altogether captivating musical, Assassins. Dark, humorous, and thought-provoking, the show explores the darker side of the American experience through the deeds of 9 would-be presidential assassins. Performances run October 13th through the 30th at the historic Cohoes Music Hall. Tickets are available at playhousestage.org. That's playhousestage.org. And if you go see that one, you might see a familiar face in the cast. Miss Benita Zahn is in that production of Assassins. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm so excited to be involved in this production. And for the second time, I get to play Emma Goldman.
That's amazing.
The rabble rouser. So yeah, buy tickets, come early, come late, stay, talk to the cast. No, it's all really a lot of fun. And also we've got to correct something because Harbinger Theater is doing
Andy and the Orphans. Yes, sadly, by the time this closes, this episode airs, that will have closed. It was a fantastic production. I hope you guys caught it.
Right, which I didn't get to catch because I'm rehearsing, but I had gotten bad information. You know what they say about GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, and they do all regional premieres. I had been, we won't get into the weeds. That the show they're doing now had been done once before locally. It's not all Harbinger all the time. Rock on, Harbinger.
Yes, absolutely. All 7 of this year's shows are regional premieres, and all 5 scheduled for next year are Capital Region premieres. And that's kind of their mission, is to bring new stuff. So if you're looking for something that's not Neil Simon and the go-to things that everybody does, check out Harbinger.
There's nothing wrong with Neil Simon.
There is nothing wrong with Neil Simon, but sometimes you want something new.
That's right. And we've got something. When you get married to something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Well, the full person that we are focusing on and going to introduce you to today is in many ways like that. She's a one-woman wrecking crew. I mean, she acts, she directs, well, I'm not sure about the directing part. Acts, writes, is a docent, history, and she's doing it all. And she just walked out of a rehearsal. What kind of a rehearsal, a fundraiser get together. Let's get the show on the road. And she's in her car to talk to us. Welcome, Lydia Nightingale. Hi there.
Hi there. So great to be here, Benita and Ellen. Thank you so much.
And you're involved with Creative
Yes, Creative Action Unlimited. They are a social justice theater company run by Michael Kennedy. Their rehearsal space is right here in East Greenbush. That's where I am right now. And I just got out of a rehearsal for one of the pieces that are being presented at the gala they're having on October 14th at 6 p.m.
Wonderful.
So if you're at all interested in that, it's going to be really, really great. You can go to creativeactionunlimited.com.
They do a lot of wonderful things. In fact, back in the summer, I emceed an event with the folks from Monopiates, a grassroots group that fell involved. He and his wife lost their son
Mm.
through an overdose, and they're very active in the community, education and creative action performed two different, a group of scenes, for lack of a better, and really just everybody's wonderful, fabulous performers. How did you get to be involved with them, Lydia?
Well, I believe there was a casting call that went out through the Captist auditions mailing list. And I had worked with certain people in that company before, but this was sort of really my first time being involved with the company as a whole. So I really just it was a Zoom interview. Oh my gosh, I've been like interviewing for jobs lately, so I'm getting interviews and auditions all mixed up. But I auditioned over Zoom, and it was actually my second time auditioning for the company, but this was the one that I got into. So it's pretty cool. It's 5 pieces being presented, that in each of them is about a different social justice issue. So the one that I'm working on is about climate change.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You, as I said at the beginning, your resume is a little different than most of the performers in the Capital Region, because you're also a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and you're at Cherry Hill now?
So right now I am I'm a contract worker for the state during the week. But on Saturdays I actually work at Fort William Henry up in Lake George. I am a tour guide up there. So right now I kind of give the history sort of lesson before their musket and cannon demonstrations. That's my job.
In costume.
Not in costume yet. Actually, it was funny. I was supposed to be in costume from the beginning, but the costumes there are so wool intensive, let's say, very, very hot. And I have a hard time with the heat. So they said that they would wait until the fall to get me in costume. So soon I'll be in costume,
Now,
allegedly.
did I read right that you had been also at Cherry Hill?
Yes. So I had been in a show at Cherry Hill called Swept Clean. It was a show that was sort of associated with the Northeast Theater Ensemble. And it was written by Krista Dennis, and it basically told the story of the family that lived in historic Cherry Hill, and sort of the story of how they lost the house because they fell on hard times. But then there's a sort of message at the end that they do get the house back. But I played Catherine Rankin's cousin, Harriet Gold.
So that's why I wanted to tie the two together. You know, there's acting in many arenas, but doing historical pieces
Mm-hmm.
in or out of costume, is there another dimension to this? Is there different pre-work that has to get done? How does that align with other theatrical performances you might do?
Let's see. Well, it's interesting because the Swept Clean show was not the first show I had done where I was playing a real person. Let's see, 2019, I was in the Schenectady Civic Players production of Silent Sky, where I played Henrietta Leavitt, who was basically one of the first really well-known female astronomers, who basically she did all the groundwork for the system of measurement that we use to measure the universe. So she was a really, really cool woman. And really, when it comes to acting in historical plays and playing historical characters, doing the research and really reading, about the person, really kind of investigating sort of what was going on at the time, because you can look at a play or a situation that she was in at the time, which for a lot of the play it did deal a lot with her kind of being up against this sort of very patriarchal kind of science community that would not accept her because she was a woman. She was doing all the work, this great work. But it's really important to understand things from a historical context. And also with historic Cherry Hill, with that show, Swept Clean, it was very important to understand things like husband-wife dynamics, because I was playing a character who had someone who would, by our standards today, be considered a very abusive husband. I mean, and of course it was sort of it's fiction, like it's based on history, but of course it is the playwrights sort of vision of what these people might have been like. But you know, you kind of are that back then, it wouldn't really have been considered that. So you have to kind of have that sort of in your head so you know how the character would react, and then the audience can kind of take that and decide what they think about it.
Hmm.
What's the most challenging thing about portraying a real person on stage?
Most challenging thing, I would say, and I felt this a lot with Henrietta Leavitt, just sort of because, you know, obviously if most of the time, if you're writing a play like that, like Silent Sky, about someone, it's because they did something hugely important, or they were a very kind of, you know, significant figure. There's another play that was done over at Russell Sage a couple years ago, because I used to work there. I worked there for 2 years as an office manager for the theater department. And they did a show about Marie Curie. That it was an excellent play. Shout out to Taylor Hoffman. She did a great job in that show. But that was a really interesting play because, you know, she did some amazing stuff, Marie Curie. And I know that Taylor kind of had a, you know, sort of a thing of being like, okay, I have this character I need to portray. And just kind of this feeling of like, you want to do justice to the person. You want to like really show that she was kind of, you know, this really important figure. But you also need to make them a human. And sometimes making them human means showing some of their, you know, insecurities, some of their flaws. You know, Henrietta, for me, my kind of portrayal of her, and the same thing with Harriet or Hattie Gould in Swept Clean, you know, they have these kind of moments of strength, but they also, you know, have these moments of being uncertain, of being kind of indecisive, or even being a little bit weaker. And you know, when I'm playing a woman on stage, I hate the weakness parts, because like I want to show them to be strong all the time, right? But you know, you kind of do have to sort of tap into that and be like, okay, you know, this is really, so I guess to sum that up, really making them a whole person, not just like this figurehead of like, oh, they were this perfect, wonderful person. You know, they also have to be, you know, a human, which I think maybe Benita, with playing Emma Goldman, you might have had to, you know, face as well.
Sure, you've got to understand who they are,
Exactly.
you know, and and understand certain essences,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Talk a little bit about your writing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you-
Sure. So, I started really playwriting. I mean, I did a lot of essays and that kind of thing in college. I actually started out at SUNY New Paltz with a theater arts degree, or theater arts performance was my bachelor's. But I also did a minor in history and a minor in creative writing. So I did a lot of essays and kind of basic college stuff. But in 2011, I started writing plays, really actually focusing a lot on my family history. My dad was actually adopted from Germany in the 1950s. And my grandparents, my adoptive grandparents, had a letter about his biological mother. And I got a hold of that letter in 2010, and it turned out that she was a German army nurse who had been captured by the Russians and was put in a prison camp and somehow escaped. Like, I'm like, who is this woman, right? And so I actually took that letter and I turned it into this play. And I kind of self-produced a reading of it in 2011. And honestly, hasn't really, it got in a kind of it was a finalist for a national playwriting award a few years ago, which was pretty cool, but it hasn't really seen the light of day since then. So I'm hoping one day it'll come back. But I actually did write a sequel to it, which can kind of stand on its own, which is about, the first play is about this woman being in the camp and how she escapes. And then the second play is about her life back in Berlin in 1946. So that play was actually produced as part of a festival in 2015 in New York, which was great. But I've also had another play read by the Barrow Theater Group in New York, which was more about relationships. There's actually another podcast that it was performed on. It's called Stand By for Places. So if anybody's curious about that podcast, you can look that up. But it's called Party Talk is the name of the episode. And really, so most of my writing has either been in the historical bent. I've written a couple of other short plays about German women in World War II and post-World War II Germany. And then I've also written just a couple plays about my experiences with relationships and things like that. Actually, one of the most recent things I wrote in 2020 was a play about a woman 10 months into sobriety, sobriety from alcohol. And she's at a bar, and she kind of is confronted with her own sense of wanting to drink in the form of another woman. Basically, this woman who's sort of, this ghost kind of tempting her to drink. And it was great. It got produced by Confetti Stage in 2020, which was kind of recorded and put online as sort of a digital festival. And I'm very proud of that one because this December will be 4 years sober for me. So that is a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Truly.
Mhm.
Are you self-taught as a playwright, or is studied? And then I always have follow-ups, and so does Ellen.
Yeah, actually, honestly, I'm pretty much self-taught. I started writing the first play, which has gone through a couple of titles, but now it's called Tinted Red. I first started writing Tinted Red before I even, took any playwriting courses. I took a couple of playwriting courses at SUNY New Paltz with the wonderful Larry Carr, and who is since retired. But I did take a couple of courses with him. And that was it. I really didn't. So I don't even know. I mean, people tell me that they're good plays. I just kind of I just sort of make it up. I'm also actually I'm not working on plays right now, but I am working on a sci-fi romance novel. So that's kind of what I'm also working on right now.
That's quite a jump from historical based things to sci-fi. What kind of led to that jump?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, it actually is still kind of historically based. So if you haven't noticed, I have kind of a preoccupation with World War II, mostly just from, my own family history, and just I find it a very interesting time period. And so this novel, it actually really started out it was very strange. I started writing it when I was on Nantucket in 2017, when I was there for an internship with the Nantucket Historical Association. And I was doing a public programs internship there. And I didn't have, I had a lot of free time. So I decided to start writing this book about aliens, like two alien races on Earth, vying for control of one wanted to destroy the human race, the other wanted to save it. It was very strange. And finally, over 3 years, it kind of morphed into this completely different thing. And by the time the pandemic started, it had become this story of a World War II soldier named Martin, who disappears in 1945. Kind of while he's in the war, and he wakes up in 1959, and he hasn't aged at all, and he has no idea how he got there, and he's in Long Island, and he runs into this other guy named Jack who's the same age as him, and they kind of team up to try to figure out what's going on. So it's sort of like this sci-fi thing. It's also a queer novel, so it's kind of like a romance between these two young men. So yeah, so I'm really interested to see where it's going to go. I'm still very much in the writing process.
To be writing for that community at this time, to give the queer community a voice is so it's so important.
Yes.
Empowering. And I'm wondering if are you getting feedback? How do you, and also it's both ways. Are you getting feedback as you're working? Lots of playwrights have a group that they read for and work with. So I don't know if you do that. And first off, do you? Or is it, do you sit in the house or in the car and get it done?
Yeah, it kind of goes back and forth. I mean, I worked on, honestly, I worked on, particularly this book for a long time, very solo. And then I just thought, I'm I'm gonna have to, I need to get over my, not like I've ever been completely afraid of criticism. I'm just sort of like, this is turning out to be, the thing is, I realized that it wasn't just going to be this little like one-off book, okay, whatever, I'm just going to write it and do something with it, or maybe not. It really has become this thing that I care deeply about, and I want it to be good, and I want it to like make a difference to someone. So I actually have, when I finished, no one's ever finished. When I finished the first draft of it, I sent it to maybe 6 or 7 people, kind of as like my beta readers, and I got a lot of great feedback from them. And then really I've started to do like a total rewrite from there. So it's probably going to take a little bit longer. But at this point, I'm not afraid to send it to people, and I have people, especially queer people, of all genders, kind of asking me like, hey, I will read this for you because I'm curious about it and it sounds good. So like when I give people the log line, most of the time they're like, oh, that sounds like something I might be interested in. So that's cool.
Now, you had mentioned going back to kind of your playwriting, there are several different festivals and awards and things like that that you've submitted for. For any of our playwrights out there that are listening, where did you find all these competitions and things to submit to? What's kind of the resources for young playwrights?
Oh, let's see. Well, locally, because a lot of my, and it's really good for kind of young fledgling playwrights to get their work out there locally. It really helps to sign up for, the mailing list. I mean, I can't say enough good things about the Captist mailing list. I mean, I've gotten so many things out of that. But also just really just like Googling playwriting submission opportunities helps. I submitted a lot off of what is it, Play Submission Helper as well, which I think and you can Google that. I think you have to pay for it if you want the full list, but even if you don't pay for it, you can get a lot of different things. And the cool thing about that, and about a lot of these sort of databases, is that it will tell you, what length they're looking for, how many characters, that kind of thing. And if there's any, fee associated with it. And the one thing I will say, kind of as a, I guess, I don't know if I want to say a warning, but just sort of what the play that I mentioned that was produced in New York in the festival in 2015, it was a great experience and I met a lot of great people, but I don't know if I would do it again, because it basically I submitted to them, and I won't mention who it was, but like I submitted to them, and I literally, they got back to me and said, hey, your play is accepted into this festival, but you have to pay us $400. So I had
Oh.
to pay them $400 to even get my play produced. And then I had to go down to the city all the time and all this crap. So, if they're asking for something like that, if they're asking for that money up front, don't do it.
Maybe it's kind of like going to the Emmys. You get nominated and you got to drop a mortgage payment in order to go sit there and eat garbage food.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
Yeah, exactly.
cutting a deal someplace.
No, it's so bad, and I'm just like, and the thing is like, and I'm not singling out this one company, but like I really kind of got treated like crap. So it was just sort of like, you got to be, honestly, do your research. Always do your research even if you're submitting to like a little festival or whatever. Do your research, because you could be working with these people and they could be really hard to work with. You never know.
Is there a growing community? Are there festivals specifically for queer plays? As the voice gets more, I don't want to say bold, but heard, as an opportunity to breathe. So are there specific festivals?
I don't know so much right now because I haven't really written too many plays of that ilk yet.
Mhm.
Honestly, the first thing that I've really written that is like unabashedly queer is this book. So, you know, partly from my own kind of fear, but whatever, like I've really kind of gotten to a place in the past, honestly, since the beginning of the pandemic, where I'm like, I'm gonna be myself and I don't care.
Hey, listen,
So
I've got an old girlfriend who is a very well-known writer of lesbian literature, very
yeah.
well known, and has built a heck of a career.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, you gotta to thine own self be true.
Yeah, no, completely. And I've really been doing a lot of soul searching lately about what I want to be writing. Because a lot of my old stuff is good, but it might not be exactly like I really, really desperately want to write, and I keep trying to figure out how to do it. Like I've written my one short play about sobriety, which I want to write more about that. But the other thing I really want to write more about is bipolar disorder, because I'm actually bipolar type 1. So, and it's very, it's very well controlled at this point. It's been 6 years since it's been a real problem. But there's so many people who have it, and I really, really believe very strongly in being open about it and having conversations about it, because so many people are hiding that they have it and they don't need to. And I really think that the thing that saved me was kind of community and like talking to people. So yeah, I really want to write something about my experiences with that. I just haven't figured out how to do it yet.
We're going to take a quick pause because we've got a couple of wonderful sponsors today. Ellen, I know you've got that copy there. So sing it out.
Yeah, so go check out October 21st through 23rd at the Rensselaer Center School District Auditorium, Masterclass Performing Arts presenting Disney's Descendants with 40 students from across the Capital Region. Go support these young performers. They're our future. Check it out at masterclassperformingarts.com. And also from October 13th through the 30th at Coho's Music Hall, Playhouse Stage Company kicks off their 35th anniversary with Stephen Sondheim's Assassins, which features some, people who actually did assassinate presidents and some who attempted to assassinate presidents. It's a very, very different show. I love it, and I will be there. So check it out. You can go to playhousestage.org to get all the information and tickets.
Sondheim says it was his best. He felt it was his most perfect show.
That's fascinating.
So you'll all have to come
Yeah.
and then decide for yourself. So Lydia, we have reached the point in the broadcast where Ellen has some very specific questions.
All right.
Yes, this is our close-up segment where we just ask some quick questions about your own personality. So Lydia, are you ready for your close-up?
Sure. Go for it.
What was the moment in your life when you just knew, I have to do theater?
Let's see. I would say seeing the production of 1776 at the Theater Institute, New York State Theater Institute. I had done acting before that, and in school and such, but kind of seeing that show in conjunction with being a student at the New York State Summer School of the Arts School of Theater in 2006, which sadly is not running right now, but back then it was at SUNY New Paltz. Doing that, and then also seeing that show, really doing the summer school, which it was a conservatory, it was by audition, kind of doing that and meeting so many new people and really intensively working on my craft, that really made me go, I want to do this. And then when I saw 1776, I said, okay, I want to do theater, and I want it to be a historical theater focus. So that was what really put me on the kind of path to where I am now.
If you had to make the incredibly difficult choice, acting or writing, which would you have to stick with if you could only do one?
I would say writing, because honestly, there really is nothing like sitting there and watching people perform what you've written. And kind of one of the biggest moments that I remember is when I had a play produced at my alma mater at SUNY New Paltz as part of their play festival. After I had graduated, I went back to watch a rehearsal, and then I got to watch one of my professors from college give notes about my characters to the women playing them, and it was just like, it was so heartfelt, and it just like made me go, I want to do this. So yeah, I love acting. It's my first love for sure. But I would say if I could only do one thing, it would be writing.
Is there a certain, since you've done a lot of historical stuff, I know you love World War II. Is there another time in history that you want to sink your teeth into?
I would say, let's see. It's honestly, it's between, it's between, honestly, World War II is my big one, but the other one actually is the American Civil War. I am kind of I've been a big sort of Lincoln person, like fangirl for a while. I'm very fascinated by the person of Lincoln, but also just by sort of how society changed at the time and kind of the frictions in the society, and really the kind of things that I learned when I learned about the North and the South and all that, just things, they really surprised me a lot of the time. So I would say, World War II, and then the American South. Also the Cold War. Sorry, that's two answers. But
I can't imagine what Lincoln would think if he heard the phrase fangirl about him.
He'd be like, no, what? Yeah. He's really interesting. I just have to say, he's really interesting because they think that he may have suffered from very severe depression. So I'm kind of interested in him from like a mental health standpoint as well. And of course, there's, Mary Todd may have had bipolar as well. Obviously none of it was controlled back then. So it was just who you were.
Is there a show out there, either historical or not, even just silly Neil Simon, that you haven't had a chance to work on, that you said, universe, I want to work on this show in some capacity?
Let's see. I would love to work on, oh man, that's hard. I'm trying to think of one that like I've seen that I've been like, oh my gosh, I really want to do that. I would love to work on, oh my gosh, either it's funny because we're talking you're talking a lot about assassins, but I really want to work on assassins.
Yeah.
And I know it's cast, but no, I'm just kidding. But no, it really, actually, I saw a production of Assassins at SUNY New Paltz years ago, and I remember being like, that looks like fun, I want to do that. And I love the whole idea of like kind of sort of alternate history, kind of like looking at history a different way. Oh, and I'm sorry, cabaret is my big one. Cabaret is my big one. I served as a dramaturg on the production at the Theater Institute back in 2017, and it was awesome. So I have worked on it in like a certain capacity, and I actually got to like be part of talkbacks and stuff talking about the history. But I would love to be in that show. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I need to just do a song from that show at karaoke and freak everyone out one day. Yeah, be like, what are you doing?
Lydia Nightingale, actress, historian, writer, you do it all.
Extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, can't wait to read what comes out next. And I guess we'll have to make a trip up and get introduced up at Fort William Henry.
And that's actually where I got married. Little fun fact.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Cool. No, it's a great wedding spot. But yeah, at the fort, I'm there right now. I'm there on Saturdays. So if anybody comes up, we have tours at 10, 12, 2, and 4. So that's when you might see me if you're there.
When you're in costume, we're waiting for that, Lydia.
Okay, that might be, you might have only a month left because I think we close in November, but yeah.
Thanks so very much for being with us. And really, all the great work. We'll look forward to more. And before we call it a show, one more pass. We've got thanks to Park Stage Company being our green room sponsor, opening Assassins on the 13th of October, running through the 30th. And Ellen, our other fabulous sponsor.
Masterclass Performing Arts running Disney's Descendants from October 21st through the 23rd.
So support them, support your local theaters, support Lydia's work, and we'll all look for you next time. I'm Benita Zahn.
And I'm Ellen Cribbs. Talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time. It's everything, everything, everything.